Hello, my art lover friends. Welcome to another art conversation. We are here today with another artist, talented artist, and National Association of Women Artists member, Louise. Welcome to our conversation.
Thank you.
We are glad that we finally get a chance to have this conversation after a long time. Louise, please start the conversation by telling us about yourself, about your background, and how you started as an artist.
That's an easy question, Farrin, because I was a child who loved art, but had no art available in my school system. So elementary school had no art teachers. So my mom hired someone to come on Saturdays and teach the neighborhood kids around the ping pong table. That was pretty much when I was in the sixth grade. So I didn't have any other instruction until I was in the sixth grade. And I remember everything that teacher said, and she really stands out in my memory. And a really fun thing that your listeners might enjoy was that a couple of years later, because, I stayed in touch with her, she took me behind the scenes to a circus.
Oh.
Can you imagine? So we had our sketch pads and we went behind the scenes to a circus. It was amazing. So that's it. I don't have art school training. When I was in high school, I had to take required subjects. When I was in college, I was the same. So I really don't have any formal art training. Deanie Perry in sixth grade, that was it.
But art is in you. So
that's right. And I learned from then on. As a young mom, I didn't really do much art until I was in my 30s, other than informal stuff. Yeah. I learned from other painters. That's what really made a difference in my life.
What medium you work with, or I should say, what art do you most identify with?
Oh, that's a great question. I started out with oils, like a lot of people, but when I was an older adult, I'm older meaning, like in my late 30s, early 40s, I was introduced to acrylics and I became a real fan of acrylics because I like to travel, and oils are very, very difficult for traveling. So I now paint almost exclusively in acrylics. Every once in a while I'll do oils, but I have to say I love acrylics, and the new open acrylics, which dry slower and do not darken much as they dry.
Yeah,
fantastic. I could go on TV and do ads for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's easy medium to work with, especially when you're traveling, and I know you travel a lot, as I said in your website. So what type of subject you paint more?
I'm pretty flexible, but landscapes first. It's just a joy for me. This little landscape that we have on the screen here was done many years ago in my town, down the road, and out a window. So there were the sheep with the classic New England farmhouse in the background. Plein air. So I'm primarily a plein air landscape painter, but I do figures. I do still lifes. Also just fun stuff. I like old junk cars and trucks and trains, that kind of thing. I'm primarily a realist, but I would say I'm an expressive realist. I'm not into tight realism.
Yeah. So most you do everyday life, right? That means you paint
right.
everyday life and any subjects that are around you.
Yes, exactly.
And in particular, I saw you have a section in your website about train and trucks and cars.
Right, right.
Beside landscape, you are also interested in man-made objects.
That's right. And this, by the way, you notice the size on this train painting is big, 24 by 36. And this was done plein air on site in a public park. So if you can imagine, I was the only person there. It was a little drizzly day, and I was so determined to do it anyway. And I just kept painting with an umbrella. That was very exciting, and you will notice an underpainting here, reds and yellows and oranges. That's become a real major part of my style, and I love that. I'm looking for vibration and something different to make something that's real, but has its own personality.
I know in your website also you have a couple of other, when I was checking,
Right.
it's pretty easy. Your website is pretty easy to navigate. You have the
Yes.
transportation
Right.
series, which is in this transportation. You have all kind of transportation, include train and buses and cars and etc. And which anyone interested, they can go and check more of this series of. And then I think you have a lot of trains, and you have a series of trains, I believe, in your website.
And I'll say a word. I'll just say a quick word since you showed it. The Cars and Trucks and Flowers. That's a series, and that was designed to have fun with the fact that usually cars and trucks are big and the flowers are little. Let's switch it so that the flowers become large and the cars and trucks become smaller, and then you think of cars and trucks as being very tough and durable and enduring, and flowers as being rather fragile and not very long lasting. So I just liked flipping those two images. Yes, and there's a bunch of other.
And then why you did that? Why flowers are, or I should say, why landscape? You painted larger than man-made.
Just to change the imagery and how we think about them in our minds. And flowers are so colorful and joyful, and most trucks and cars are, kind of one color, kind of, and just the change of how we feel about those objects, and it made it really a very playful series.
Yeah, and landscape, nature is above human, on top of human anyway.
Right.
So that's the idea of, no matter what we do, we cannot control nature. Nature always is the winner.
That's right. That's right. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's actually what I thought when I saw your work. I mean, it's the idea of nature is on top of human.
Right.
Yeah, and then I believe this is from the same series. Is this are these painted on life, or this is something you also painted based on picture? How you paint this series?
No, this was also plein air. So
Okay.
most of the cars and trucks are done plein air. Occasionally I'll have to take photos or work from photos, but this was in New Mexico. I'm in New Mexico a lot, and I for 15 years I taught at Ghost Ranch, and then COVID, of course, killed that off, and I haven't been back since. So, but I still go there and visit, and I'm in a gallery there. So it's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah, of course. And then you love traveling, so that shows.
That's right.
Another reason of transportation means traveling, means you are a travel lover.
That's right. That's right. Good for you. Good for you. You're picking up on them, Farrin.
No, that's actually, it shows our desire, right? What we paint shows our deepest desire, what we love. We love traveling. So, which is good. Good for you.
Right.
I love to travel too, if I have time. And of course, landscape, which is like, wherever you go, you try to record your traveling, and at least a piece of that to keep the memory, kind of you recording the memory.
That's right. It really, it fixes it in your soul. Exactly. Even though you enjoyed being there and all of that, there's something about standing there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It just fixes it really deeply inside you. This is painted right by the side of the road. It's a difficult place to stand because the trucks are whizzing by and all of that, but it's a favorite view. O'Keeffe painted it several times. It's not far from where O'Keeffe lived. And it's just a wonderful thing. I've done several versions of the Chama River in this particular location in New Mexico.
Yeah, and then also they said when you paint something, even if you take 100 pictures, but when you paint something, it stays with you forever, right? Because when it comes from your mind and heart through your hand, it kind of carve it in you for eternity. And this is beautiful, beautiful. You recording the history. Also, I noticed you recording the history. Besides, landscape, you are interested in people.
Yes. Yes.
So kind of you recording the history, culture, as well as the environment at the same time. Would you please talk about this women series, or I think African album you mentioned in your book?
Well, this had to be done from photographs. When I was in Kenya, I was there for not quite a month. The Kenyan people and traditional people especially are offended if you take photos or try to draw them without permission.
Mhm.
And you also don't have a lot of time. So I was lucky to be part of a group that traveled to a Maasai village. The Maasai are very, very traditional outside of Nairobi. And the group was allowed to be in the village and allowed to take photographs. That was part of the agreement. And that made it very special. So I was able to get poses and situations that were very relaxed, as you see with these two women. The one on the left is doing beadwork in her lap, and the Maasai women do lots and lots of beading. So you see the primary character, they're all the beadwork around her neck, her long earrings, that kind of thing, and then lots of color. So they live in these sort of wattle and daub houses made from the land, and they're very gray. So the rest of them, however, on their person is color all the time, and that was great. And her expression is so wonderful. So I did a few of these, and I have them combined then with some West African women as well. So I have a series of 4 large women paintings from Africa. It was great. Right? And there was an accordion book too. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, because when I left to go to Kenya, I was mentioning it to friends, and one woman said to me, I think you should do a book. I thought, oh, right. I'd never done a book, but I thought about the whole time I was there. I brought home fabric for the covers. And then when I got home, I took a bookbinding class because I thought, well, gee, I better know if I can do this or not and whether it's feasible. So these are hand printed. Each image is an original small silk screen done on a little Japanese press called a goko press. And in Japanese, goko means to print, to reproduce an image. So print goko is the name of the press, if someone would like to look it up. And I did 100 of these. I also did a little storybook. So you see on the tabletop, there's a pocket with the storybook in it about my experiences with Kenyan women.
Okay.
I did 100. I sold 90 of them and paid for my trip.
Okay. That's good.
Isn't that a great story?
That's awesome story, to do what you love and also cover your expenses, why not?
Right.
And so you wrote about them, right? You said you wrote about these stories. Are these included the text within the images or in the reverse side? Or
No, there's there's a little captions on the end page,
Okay.
little captions for each picture. But once you read the stories, you know what the pictures are about. There's 4 stories, and they are all about my experiences with the African women, the Kenyan
Are
women.
those stories made up or they are real thing you
Oh,
experienced?
they're real. They were very real. Some
Okay.
very embarrassing, some rather exciting and adventurous. Yeah.
That's all about being adventurous, right? Sometimes,
Yeah.
you do something which may not be so appealing to your experience. But it's wonderful, somehow you're recording the history, you're recording the travel. Are you still doing this, making book of your trip or traveling?
Not so much about the traveling, but about other issues, which maybe we will touch on a little later. I did a larger book, tabletop book about the Underground Railroad and about African American experiences in Harper's Ferry. So these are 24 by 36, and I did about 8 of them. I have the one behind me, which is rather different.
Okay, maybe I can stop sharing, then they can see it behind you. Okay, so that's the same thing, right?
No, that's a different painting. This is a different painting
from the
behind
same
me.
series. Okay.
Same series, yes. So, but you can get a sense of the size by having it right behind me. The one that's on the screen is called Palms.
Okay.
And when I was traveling in Costa Rica and Guatemala, the rainforest, of course, was all around me. And when I came home, I really wanted to work with that material. Well, in order to do it plein air, I was not in Costa Rica. I was in New England. So I was blessed by being able to go to the Smith College greenhouse and the Mount Holyoke College greenhouses.
Okay.
And they both have lots of tropical plants and things to work with. That was great fun. I did it in the middle of the winter, January, February, got to wear a t-shirt, you know, because it's nice and warm in those greenhouses. And I did all of these paintings plein air in the greenhouses. It was great. It was
How long
very,
it took you to make all this?
gosh, I'm thinking that was a year, probably a focused year.
So you used to go every day and paint it there, or you just, okay,
You know, maybe once a week. Maybe
Okay.
once a week. I would get a good painting, you know, a painting well started as we do, and then bring it into the studio and then
All right.
try to finish it up.
Finish
Yeah.
it up. Okay.
Mhm.
This is the series you talk about African Americans. Okay.
Yes. Yes. This was it's a very special series to me. I'm also a historian as well as an artist. So I worked for many years at Historic Deerfield and then the Associated Museum in Deerfield, Massachusetts. This figure, Lucy, is very important in American history, but few people know about her, and there are no images of her. So mine is the only image at this point that exists. She was the first African American woman poet in this country.
Okay. And then I believe some of these texts around here in the background and foreground are her poem.
Yes, part of her poem is at the bottom, one of her poems, and a map of where she lived, because she was her husband bought her freedom. They became free people of color in Vermont, helped to found a couple of towns, and they both died there. She was quite elderly when she died, and her obituary was in a local newspaper, if you can imagine, in the I think late 1700s. If you can imagine a person of color having an official obituary in a newspaper was pretty impressive. So yeah. She's a very, very exciting figure.
And how you found a picture of her?
Oh, there wasn't any. So this was done live from a friend of our family's who was about the age of Lucy when Lucy wrote the poem that made her famous. They're not sure, but somewhere between maybe age 15 and 20, something like that. Okay. So this young woman posed for me. She was a great model. And yeah, it was a joy. It was a real joy.
Okay, so is this her real feature, or like this is a model you made? This
is the model. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know what Lucy looked like. There's not even a drawing. There are no. Yeah.
All right, but there is record. So this is, I think, Frederick Douglass, which is put the title with the same, right?
Exactly. And so with this series, there are 5 persons from the past and 5 from the present. And in each painting, I did some inscription, something of their own words. And this shows Frederick Douglass in his lecture suit. Again, this is a model. This is a man who portrays Frederick Douglass in dramatic situations. So he was wonderful. He came to pose for me. He brought his lecture suit, and he's wrapped in the chains that are falling off because now he is a free person, holding a very small Bible. And across his body is printed, I am fast in my chains and I remain a slave. Could it be that I could fly? Could I would swim? God, please deliver me. It cannot be that I will remain a slave.
That's one of his poems.
It's one of his quotations. That's right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the idea of chain, that means the chain kind of coming down and opening. That means he's now a free man.
Exactly. And these are very large. These are almost life size. They're 5.5 feet tall.
All right. So this is also a figures. Did you have an image of him, or there is no image of Douglass either?
Well, there are lots of photos of Douglass, but I used a model. I used a model for this, and they came to my studio. In these cases, each person came to my studio and posed for me.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is another book I see. One of your historical painting.
And this is what I'd mentioned earlier, a tabletop folding book. It's quite large. Okay. They're canvases that I just hinged together. They are 18 by 24s. And it's part of the African American history of Harper's Ferry. I was artist in residence at Harper's Ferry National Park. That was wonderful. It was a month And I did this series as well as the Underground Railroad. So you can see there's a black soldier, and there's also, excuse me, there's an image there on the left of the what they call John Brown's fort. And John Brown came to Harper's Ferry with a group of men to instigate an uprising of the slaves in the area in hopes of beginning their battle for freedom. Mm-hmm. In the end, Brown was arrested, he was hung, but it was an event that precipitated the Civil War.
And then this is also folded. Are they wood? I mean, the images printed on wood. What medium?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. They're silk screen.
Okay, silk screen. Okay.
They're silk screen on paper, and then the paper is glued to the canvases.
Okay, those are canvases. Okay, okay.
They're glued onto the canvases, and then there are captions and text that sit on the table that you can read for each image. Yeah, it's very portable. Goes in a box.
How many you made? Is this just one?
This is just one. The silkscreen process in this case, you cannot do multiples. Okay. Each image is applied separately. You pull the squeegee and you get one. So they're monotypes. Okay. The African book, the little GoCo press, you can do multiples. So that's how I was able to print 100 books. But in this case, I did two of them. I did one to leave with the park and one for me to take home. So I have one for my own that can be, loaned out to schools and things.
Okay. All right. And this is also another from the same series, right?
Well, this is a different series. When I was at the Wurlitzer Foundation in Taos as a residency, which was 2 months, and I did a series on the Pueblo Revolt, which most people have never heard of, especially if you don't live in the Southwest. But it was the only completely successful Native American uprising against the invaders, of the European invaders. So this is the first painting. They're also very large. They're 50 inches high and 36 wide. This one's about creation. So it's the Native perspective on creation, the Pueblo people.
Okay, so what's the name of it? Because I have two. I believe I have one here, and that's the second one, right? So this is
right.
After we emerge okay.
That's right. This is after we emerged, which the Pueblo people believe they emerged from the ground, from a hole in the ground, and then their worship center, their sacred space is a kiva. So many of us have heard the word kiva, but a kiva is their church, as they would where they worship and do their ceremonies. So this next painting that you have coming up, it's called Altar Daggers, and this shows the Roman Catholic altar screen, hand painted in the New Mexican churches. And down below is this round structure. That's a kiva with a ladder that goes through the hole down into the ground. So there's a large chamber down there. In this case, this is representing the revolt. So you have the Spanish colonial altar screen with legs, and they were all sitting on legs in the churches. The legs have turned into daggers. You see how pointed they are, piercing the kiva, because the Roman Catholic religion destroyed the religion of the kiva. The Native people were not permitted to continue with their religious observances, and that was one thing that precipitated the revolt of Native people against the Spanish invaders. Okay, this is my favorite painting of the whole series.
Oh, really? Yeah, it is. It's so meaningful and a lot of history and a lot of story behind this. And I say there is a background, all around this. There is an age around it. What's about this?
That's a great question, because these paintings are unstretched. They're on unstretched canvas with leather edging and rod pockets top and bottom, because in colonial New Mexico, the Native people, of course, began recording their histories on animal hides. So I was trying to reproduce that sense of the animal hides, because when the Spanish came in, then they would paint biblical stories on animal hides to hang in the churches. But of course, they were European and they had to be rectangular.
Okay.
Whereas the native people took the animal hide, left the legs and arms on, all the legs on, and it was irregular. But
Yes.
no, the Europeans, stitched them together and made them very rectangular. So mine are rectangular also, and they're loose, and that also made it very easy to store.
Okay.
Because you get a lot of big paintings and you're not sure where you're going to store these things.
Are these on canvas or?
Yes, they're on canvas, but with the leather edging added later.
Okay. So just to have kind of a sense and a feeling of that original type of painting.
Exactly. And then the painted border, I'll just add, there's a painted border all the way around, and that was to act as a little bit of a frame. And so each painting has a border that is consistent with the subject matter, like this one. Yeah, this one has a Native American design in the border.
Okay, and how long it takes? Is this something also you read their story or you wrote about them?
Yes, I had to do research first. When I got to Taos for the residency, I spent a couple of weeks in the local library. I had a great library there. And I had to do all the research. And once I had the research, I knew the images I was going to do. And then, boy, I just painted. I painted fast, and I'd finished 9 paintings by the end of the 2 months. And then when I came home, I finished number 10. So there are 10 total in the series.
Which is out in your website somewhere.
Right. Right.
All right, very interesting. And I'm really glad that you record all this history, right? The event, which is some people, they don't know. And that's the whole idea of early, in particular, medieval time, to visualize, because not so many people could read and write, but people understand when they see image. So by visualizing, that means everyone can access it and everyone can read it. So that's what you do. Although today, majority of people can read and write, but it's still visualize. That's different effect on just reading the text.
Exactly.
So, yeah. All right.
So this image is quite large also for the gallery that I work with in Taos, and but it's the Rio Grande River forms a very dramatic gorge in northern New Mexico, very, very dramatic, that pretty much every artist paints in some way. Well, I love this because it was an aerial view. Okay. I've done it from ground level, but this was an aerial view. It was a photograph, and I was able to work from that with this very famous bridge across it. If you're coming down from Colorado, that's the way you get into Taos. That's right. And you can see the beginning of my landscape style is beginning to change a little bit. I add color here and there, and I was very influenced by Wolf Kahn, who just died recently in the last few years. But he would add strips of color here and there. And another person that does that is Steve Quiller. So those are 2 artists that have influenced me. And Steve Quiller is still painting, lives in Creede, Colorado.
Okay. And they also painted in landscape.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
This is from the same series, right?
That's right. That's right. And relatively recent. Okay. So this one I did. Again, I had to work from a photograph, but I just fell in love with, I like to put photographs together, take pieces of different photographs. So this is basically northern New Mexico into the mountains, not in the southern sort of plains and desert area, but the northern New Mexico. And it's the aspens when they turn yellow in the fall. Mm-hmm. It's about 24 by 30 acrylic again.
Okay. All right, and that's the same series too.
That's right. And this is the Chama River, again, near Abiquiu, near Ghost Ranch, not far away. Very big painting, 4 feet by 6 feet. Again, showing a little bit of the influence of Wolf Kahn and Steve Quiller, using some contrasting color lines into the landscape that aren't really there if you're standing there. But they make it more exciting as a painting, and I like vibration. I'm always looking for vibration in my work, so that helps out.
And then you bring it out more, you mean, in your painting, compare. And then you kind of collage you take picture, and you said you pick a little bit of each picture and create this, right?
Probably. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I can take elements from several different photographs and combine them into one painting. It's a more creative process. It's not is no longer my goal now, as I'm older. I just turned 80. So,
Oh my
so
gosh, good for you.
getting older. But I no longer try to do what I did when I was a very young woman. I don't try to do a photographic representation of an place anymore. I don't. I want to do an interpretation of it, and color is my middle name. So
yeah, that's that's a good middle name.
yeah.
All right, Liz, thank you. And we almost at the end of our conversation. Do you have any advice, message, anything for our fellow artists?
Just to keep painting and find someone to paint with. If you have a hard time keeping going, just because things get in the way, life gets in our way. But if you paint with a friend or with a group, that will keep you painting. And I really believe that. I do a lot of teaching. And one of the things I'm most excited about and proud of is that when we do a student show, and I do a student show pretty much every year, their work is not imitating Louise's work. Their work is from themselves, from their core, who they are and what's coming out of them. And it's very, very exciting to me. I've read articles and seen examples of teachers, who teach a lot. And then you see a picture of their students and what they're doing. And the student work is exactly like the teachers. I don't find that very valuable. I just don't.
We all inspire each other, right? And then inspiration is the key, and
Right.
then the rest they can bring it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Give them the basics, and then just become a cheerleader. Become a cheerleader and a guide, and I help, do critiquing, but boy, keep them going in their own path. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, Farrin. Thank you. It's been a joy. Really a joy.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And keep working and keep painting and keep working on your middle name color. Bring more color.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody. See you next month. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.